Hello students, welcome to the history class. I welcome the students of standard 10th for the history class. Chapter on your screen, chapter number 9, Heritage Management. So this is your Puja teacher, and today we take a start with the last chapter of this text, that is of history, heritage management. Dear students, before I take a start, just recollect at a glance which we have discussed on page number 18 of your text. Yes, we have discussed the Indian tradition declared as oral and intangible heritage. For example, 2001, Kutiyattam, Sanskrit Theatre, Kerala. So all this collective information about oral and intangible heritage. Then students, we have also discussed about the World Cultural Heritage Sites. Even in the additional notes, practice notes, I have given this. So as far as World Cultural Heritage Sites are concerned, something about, yes, Agra Fort, Ajanta Caves, Vedul, Ellora Caves, Taj Mahal, and so on. And then also World Natural Heritage Sites. So students, in that we have discussed about the Kaziranga National Park, Kollaidalo National Park, Manas Wildlife Sanctuary, Sundarbans National Park. So you can get the complete material on page number 18 about the World Cultural Heritage and World Natural Heritage Sites. Now here I want you to pay attention to the word heritage. Students, as we are discussing this text, it is very much based on heritage and its management. Students, we are very much blessed. Our country, India, as well as our planet Earth, means the world around, is blessed with numbers of heritages. And they are very much important, significant. So-called, it is our legacy. And to preserve and conserve this heritage site is must. Therefore, in this text, we are going to study how one could or how we could manage our heritage. So on your screen, you could see 9.1, sources of history, their conservation and preservation. 9.2, some famous museums. 9.3, libraries and archives. 9.4, encyclopedias. Now student, please take note as we are dealing with this text about management. Of course, when we speak about the management, the scope is very comprehensive. Please take note of it. And because the scope is very comprehensive of this particular text, I have decided to have separate sessions for this particular lesson, for this particular chapter. So today, students, we are going to deal only with 9.1, that is sources of history, their conservation and preservation. Because students, each and every topic is so much elaborative, so much descriptive that just I can't run with the readings. I hope you're getting me. And therefore, for today's session, we'll have only 9.1 and we will be discussing different sources of history and about their conservation and preservation. So students, here I take a start. Heritage management. Heritage management is a growing field that is concerned with the identification, protection and stewardship of cultural heritage in the public interest. Yes, I have used the word stewardship. That is a job of supervising. So again, I repeat that as the field of heritage management is growing with the identification, protection and stewardship of cultural heritage in the public interest, here the term heritage is preferred because of its inherent sense of transmission, legacy and inheritance. So students, here heritage is defined as that heritage is a person's unique inherited sense of family, or you can say family identity, the values, the traditions, culture and artifacts handed down by previous generations. Some families define their heritage primarily as their ethnic, cultural or national identity. So on your screen, I take a start. We are just going to discuss this inherent legacy, what we have taken from our previous generations, handed down to us by our previous generation. And so, on your screen, I read, the sources of history and all the history books that are available today are the results of the diligent work of several historians. Institutes like libraries, museums, and archives conserve and preserve this precious historical heritage. They choose important specimens from the heritage collection and exhibit them. Exhibit them, that is, display them. They also publish research journals, informative pamphlets, leaflets, posters, etc. The documents and artifacts which are not exhibited but historically very important are stored in the museums and archives after completing necessary treatments for their conservation and preservation. Those documents and artifacts are made available to researchers as and whenever necessary. Libraries conserve, preserve and manage the books. Now 9.1. So till now we have discussed about what are the sources of history and how they are taken care of. Now somewhat in detail we are going to study about the sources of history in 9.1 and their conservation and preservation. Again on your screen, each step like collecting the sources of history, creating their records and indexes, exhibiting manuscripts, old books and artifacts, after completing necessary treatments require very careful handling and management. It needs people with specific skills. Only trained person who are duly qualified can take up this task. So students, when we speak about the sources of history, yes, sources of history are divided in three categories. Number 1, oral sources of history. Number 2, written sources of history. And number 3, material sources of history. And now we take a start with oral sources of history. So students, what are the oral sources of history? Oral sources in history are accounts given by a person of events earlier in their life. Often they are taken by family members, historians, archivists, or other who interview older people in an attempt to document events and lives that might otherwise be forgotten. So this is about the oral sources. Now students, again, please take note. Sources are divided in two categories. That is primary sources and secondary sources. So before I read the text content, I would like to let you know about the primary sources and secondary sources of oral sources of history. So students, as far as oral sources are concerned, at primary level, it may include diaries, letters, interviews, then oral, then photographs, newspaper articles, government documents, poems, novels, plays, and music. The collection and analysis of primary sources is central to historical research. And now, secondary sources. Secondary sources of history analyze a scholarly question and often use primary sources as evidence. Secondary sources include books and articles about topic. They may include list of sources like bibliography that may lead you to other primary or secondary sources. And now on your screen. So, as discussed earlier, that yes, sources of history is divided in three categories: oral sources, written sources, and material sources. So here we go with the oral sources, and we have discussed the examples of oral sources at primary stage and at secondary stage. Now what about the same? Yes student, collecting and compiling of folk songs and folk tales, etc. Compiling, that is bringing them together, yeah, and binding them. Classifying, analyzing and interpreting the compiled material. Publishing the results of respective research. So this is the fundamental task of oral resources that has to be done in respect of time. So research work has to be. Now, who are the people working for such conservation and preservation of oral sources? Students, there is a special training, necessary training for the people who get appointed for the preservation and conservation of the historical sources. Please take note. So what is the necessary training if you wish to take up a job, if you wish to make a career in history, working for the sources, historical sources? So number one is sociology and anthropology. Yes, the person should be trained in sociology. Students, sociology or a sociologist is an expert in, please take note, is an expert in or student of development, structure and functioning of human society. So students, in Hindi you can call Samaj Vigyani or Samaj Shastri. So he is the sociologist. And then anthropology. Yes, anthropology is a study of human societies and cultures and their development. The study of human biological and physiological characteristics and their evolution. So students, this is anthropology. Anthropology in Hindi, it is said Manushya Jati Ka Vigyan. Please take note, Manushya Jati Ka Vigyan, the person who studies, so is called an anthropologist. Now students, the next number two is social psychology. Yes, sorry. A person should be trained as social psychologist. Why? Yes, an expert who typically explain human behavior as a result of the relation between the mental state and social situation, studying the factors, condition under which certain behavior, action and feeling occur. So students, the person should have a proper training of social psychology. Number 3 is mythology and linguistics. Students, as far as languages are concerned, yes, languages are far more complex than they need to be for one-to-one communication. Myth. Myth may not mark the dawn of proto or rudimentary. Rudimentary, that is limited to basic principle. I repeat, myth may not mark the dawn of proto or rudimentary language. Please take note, rudimentary, that is limited to basic principles, or even the beginnings of full language, but its existence account, at least in part, for the evolution of linguistic complexity. So students, yes, the person should be thoroughly trained in mythology. Mythology is a collection of myths, especially one belonging to a particular religious or cultural tradition. So you have mythological stories like gods and goddesses. So this is what the collection of myth is, and the person who is working as a resource person in the field of history, he should have thorough knowledge of mythology and linguistics as well. Students, linguistics are relating to language or linguistics. For example, if I say a child's linguistics ability. So students, please take note, mythology and linguistics, they go hand in hand, and so we have discussed about the mythology and linguistics. Number 4, this expectation is there for the trainee that yes, library and science and information technology. Now students, what is library science and what is information technology? For the conservation and preservation of sources of history, training in library science is must, as it is an interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary field that applies the practices, perspectives of and tools of management, information technology, education and other areas to libraries. So here we get to know that library is nothing but the collection of the disciplines in all. So the thorough knowledge of library science is must. Next is about information technology. Yes. Students, the conservation and preservation department should also have thorough knowledge of computer and telecommunication for storing, retrieving and sending information. So-called information technology consultant. Number 5 is history and historical research method. Students, historical research involves studying, understanding and interpreting past events. I hope you agree. Yes. The purpose of historical research is to reach insights or conclusions about past persons or occurrences. Historical data are categorized into primary or secondary sources. So this is what the work of research method is. History and historical research method, that they do have the historical data which are categorized into primary and secondary sources. Now student, we are coming to the 6th point of being a trainee. What you will be studying if you are working as the resource person for the oral sources. Number 6, writing of research reports and articles. Students, please take note, writing of research reports and articles, again very comprehensive topic. A person should be trained with much equipped knowledge when it comes to the research reports and articles, especially for the subject history. So students, writing of research reports and articles, these are the guidelines for the historical research and writings. That is how to approach research and writing. In all, there are 14 steps to a good historical research paper. Sir Richard Marius outlined 14 steps that every student should follow in writing a historical research paper. So students, I hereby list down those 14 steps in the field of writing research reports and articles. Number 1, identify your audience. Number 2, have a sharply focused and limited topic. Number 3, present an argument. Number 4, base your paper on primary sources and a thorough reading of secondary sources. Number 5, build your paper step by step on evidence. Number 6, provide a good title for your paper. Number 7, get to the point quickly and stick to it. Number 8, tell a good story. Number 9, document your sources. Number 10, write dispassionately. Number 11, reach independent conclusions. Number 12, consider counter evidence. Number 13, use standard English and observe the common conventions of writing. And number 14, let your first and last paragraph mirror each other. So these are the 14 steps suggested by Sir Richard Marius as far as historical writing of research reports and articles are concerned. And now students, we are moving on to the next source, and that is the written sources of history. Yes, as we are proceeding further, there's a lot of curiosity in learning about these sources. Students, when we speak about the written sources of history, of course they are divided in primary and secondary sources. So, the primary sources of written records may include diaries, letters, interview, oral histories, photographs, newspaper articles, government documents, poems, novels, plays, and music. Moreover, students, secondary sources of written history should have, yes, for a historical research project, a proper material for a historical research project. Secondary sources are generally scholarly books and articles. A secondary source interprets and analyzes primary sources. So students, overall, written sources are those which are in the form of written text. They are used by historians to reconstruct ancient, medieval, and modern history. Some examples of written sources that give us information about history are newspapers, gadgets, diaries, reference books, and official correspondence. So on your screen, written sources of history. Collecting coins and copper plates with inscription on them. Documents like official records, personal correspondence and diaries, historical books, old books, manuscripts, pictures, photographs, etc. Completing necessary mechanical and chemical processes of cleaning for the conservation and preservation of the collected document. Students, this topic I will discuss in clear regarding cleaning and conservation and preservation. Okay, but not now, later. Next is asserting the historical value of collected documents. Now students, asserting means what? Asserting, that is discovering, or that is to find something that will be much more of assurance. Got it? So asserting the historical value of collected documents, that yes, whatever material we have documented is very much authentic in nature. Then student, exhibiting selected documents, that is display, to make the display of the selected documents. And next is publishing edited documents and research reports. So this is the task undertaken by the written sources of history. And who are the people working for the same? Those are working for the written records. What is the eligibility a trainee should have? A person who is getting this recruitment, he should have a proper training, a necessary training. So on your screen, I will go point by point and I will explain you. So here we go with only number 1 point, that is knowledge of script like Brahmi, Modi, Persian and their development. Students, please take the pronunciation. Brahmi script, it is Modi. It is not Modi, it is Modi, the Modi script, Persian script and their development. So students, yes, what is it about? Let us speak about that the person who is recruited in the written sources should have a thorough knowledge of scripts. So what about these scripts? What are the types of scripts? These types of scripts are Brahmi script, Modi script and Persian script. So students, actually Brahmi is the modern name for a writing system of ancient India. The Brahmi writing system or script appeared as a fully developed universal one in and South Asia in the 3rd century. Okay, and how is the way of writing, direction of writing? So Brahmi script direction of writing is from left to right. Okay, and which are the languages found in the Brahmi script? The languages are Dravidian language, Tocharian language and Saka language and more. So students, please take note. Brahmi script is also known as Gupta script or Vatelutu or Sorang script. Vatelutu or Sorang script, or also Sompeng script, Sompeng, Sompeng script. So that was about Brahmi script. Then Modi script. The Modi script was invented during the 17th century to write the Marathi language of Modi font by Somesh Bartake. And next is the Persian script and their development. Students, please take note. Along with this text, I am going to also forward a PDF of images. So I have forwarded the images of Brahmi script, Modi script and Persian script in that PDF. Okay, so for your better understanding. Now student, we move on to basic knowledge of social organization and tradition, literature and culture, dynasties, administrative system, etc. of past society. Yes, if I want to get the job in the department of the written sources of history, I should have the basic knowledge of all these things. Basic knowledge of what is social organization and traditions, about literature and culture, about dynasties, administrative system, etc. of the past societies. Means, how as anthropologists working in the small community of peasant, are we single tradition to study or that specialization of knowledge that has? So certain questions one should be able to answer. That is called the basic knowledge of social organization. The person should also define, yes, a traditional society, or to state some examples of the social organization of a culture. The person should have thorough knowledge of to state the purpose of social organization and importance of traditions, dynasties, administrative systems, etc. of the past. So you should have the thorough knowledge of the past as far as social organizations are concerned. Now we move on to number 3, knowledge of various schools and styles of paintings and sculptural art and history of their development. Students, ancient schools and styles of painting and sculptural art and history. For example, I would like to give on this point number 3. When we speak about the ancient schools of styles of paintings and sculptures, yes, I would like to list down Mauryan art, Sunga art, Amravati school, Gandhara school of art, Mathura school of art, Mauryan art. So students, in Mauryan art what you study is the study of the pillars and the study of stupas. Okay. And now students, please take note. For your professional knowledge, there are types of art degrees and programs in present. Just I will list down this for you. So if you are very much interested to go for the schools of styles and paintings and sculptural art and history, there are schools available. There is training available in that you can have the degrees like number 1 sculpture, number 2 printmaking, number 3 art design, number 4 drawing and painting, number 5 studio arts, number 6 architecture, number 7 digital media. So that point is clear. And now number 4, knowledge of types of paper, ink and colors. Yes, very important. But students, before I move on to the 4th point where we will be discussing about types of paper, ink and colors, just I want you to make it clear about point number 3, that yes, what type of art did ancient India have? Students, Indian art of groups different from artistic expressions created in the Indian subcontinent. The earliest form was rock art, including petroglyphics and later cave paintings. Sculpture was first created by Indus Valley civilization. That was to point number 3. And now we are discussing about knowledge of types of paper, ink and colors. Yes, if you are very much interested to learn something in detail about the written sources of history, you should know the type of paper, the quality of the paper, then the source of ink and the source of colors used in the writing and the written sources. So students, something for you. As far as paper is concerned, the word paper is etymologically derived from papyrus. Ancient Greek for the papyrus plant. Papyrus is a thick paper-like material produced from the pith of the papyrus plant, which was used in ancient Egypt and other Mediterranean societies for writing long before paper was used in China. What about the ink? 2 types of ink were prevalent at the time: the Greek and Roman writing ink, that is sooth, S-O-O-T, sooth, glue and water, and the 12th century variety composed of ferrous sulfate, gall, 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 gum and water. Neither of these handwriting inks could adhere to printing surfaces without creating blurs. So that was a specialty of this ink, that their images, that the writing work was so perfect and it was without creating any blurs. Then what about the colors? People in regions like ancient Greece, Egypt and even ancient Phoenicians relied on Indian dyes, that is Indian colors. Some of the most prolifically produced colors in India with a high overseas demand were indigo, yellow, red and purple. So that is about the knowledge of paper, ink and colors. And now we move on to point number 5. Knowledge of properties of various stones and metals used for inscriptions. Yes, I think students, you are much more curious to know about the stone inscriptions and the metal inscriptions. Yes. Students, I hope you know what is inscription. Yeah, that is the carving work, the handwritten work done on stones and metals, of course. So students, when it comes to the inscription, the metal most commonly used for inscriptions was bronze. Flat tablets of this were often made for affixing to the walls of temples and other buildings. Occasionally, such tablets were made of silver and gold, and inscriptions were often incised on vessels made of any of these metals. I hope it is clear. Now about the stones. Students, again in your PDF, I have posted some hero stones. So I want you to see the pictures of those hero stones. So here just explanation I'll give you that yes, about the stone inscriptions, a hero stone, that is Nattukal in Tamil and Virakallu in Kannada. So these are two types of stones. I shall be sending the images of these stones in PDF, and I want you to pay attention to the inscription work done on it. Now I move on to point number 6. Knowledge of the equipment and chemicals used in various processes of cleaning, conservation and preservation. Yes, student, please take note. In the passing time, such important sources, written sources, they get affected, they get spoiled. So the thorough work of cleaning should be done, and proper conservation and preservation. So what about it? So students, for cleaning, soaps and detergents. Students, the history of soap is a long one dating back thousands of years to ancient Babylon. Humans have built on that knowledge to create the soaps and detergents we use to clean dishes, laundry, our homes and ourselves today. Is that clear? When we speak about the conservation, yes, the conservation and restoration of books, manuscripts and documents. And then preservations. Students, volcanic ash preserved some of the Roman library of the Villa of the Papyri in Herculaneum. Ironically, the manuscripts that were being most carefully preserved in the libraries of antiquity are virtually all lost. So this is very sad part, that something that was very much preserved in the libraries of antiquity, it got virtually all lost. So students, this is what, even there are some challenges in the way of preservation and conservation. Next, knowledge of various approaches of managing exhibition in museums, galleries and information technology. Yes students, you all are very much closely connected with the word exhibition. You know what is the meaning of exhibition. Yes, every year we do have science exhibition, drawing exhibition in our school. So what is this? To exhibit means what? And why? What is the purpose behind the exhibition? And why the written sources need to be exhibited? Students, very often knowledge gained at exhibition in museum and galleries. An exhibition is a wonderful tool that caters to this entire requirement at the same time. The exhibition is a general term used for the organized collection of selected items and their display in the public. In more simple words, An exhibition is simply a collection of things for display. The exhibition focuses on the identification, display and interpretation of collective things. Yes? And now we move on to 8 point, that is writing research reports and articles. But students, we have discussed those 14 points about the same. You can just recollect those 14 points what we have discussed in regards with writing research reports and articles. And now we move on to material sources of history. Yes. Material sources of history. This is a third category of the sources of history. Historical sources include documents, artifacts, archaeological sites, features, oral transmission, stone inscriptions, painting, recorded sounds, images, photographs, motion pictures, and oral history. Even ancient relics and ruins, broadly speaking, are historical sources. Now students, what are the examples of material sources? Archives, manuscripts, photographs, auto recordings, diaries, films, journals, letters, speeches, scrapbooks, published books, newspapers and magazine clippings. 7 published at the time, government publication, oral histories. These are all material sources. On your screen, material sources of history. Just now as I have read, I would like to continue with the same. Collecting artifacts, classifying them according to their historical date and type and preparing indexes. Next, completing necessary mechanical and chemical processes of cleaning for the conservation and preservation of collected document. Already we have discussed about cleaning, preservation and conservation in the earlier topic. Next students, as far as material sources are concerned, arranging exhibition of selected artifacts or their replicas. Replicas, you understand what is a replicas? Replicas is a copy of something or a duplicate of something. Next, writing and publishing research articles about collected artifacts. Next, classifying fossils of plant and animals and preparing indexes. Students, please, this topic is very new. That is about classifying fossils of plants and animals and preparing indexes. You must have definitely studied about the fossils of plants and animals in your science as well as your geography also. So you know what are the fossils of plants and animals and in what way they are helpful in just recollecting the past happenings in the history. Moreover, students, exhibiting selected fossils or their replicas. So students, the fossils of dinosaurs and other related animals were found. So now their replicas are standing with the great pride in the museums and so on. And now what is the necessary training? If you want to get into the material sources of history, what is the expected training? When we are speaking about the material sources, yes, please take note of the first word in the first line, that is a basic knowledge of archaeological method and theory, history of ancient civilization. Now student, archaeology. What is archaeology? Archaeology is the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites. So students, excavation of sites. Yes, the excavation of the Mohenjo-daro and Harappan sites. I hope you remember. Yes. Excavation of sites and the analysis of the artifacts. Analysis, that is part to whole. Analysis of artifacts and other physical remains. Now when it comes to basic knowledge of archaeological method and theory, students, it is the study of human activity through the recovery and analysis of material culture. The archaeological record consists of artifacts, architecture, biofacts or ecofacts, and cultural landscapes. So students, archaeological can be considered both a social science and a branch of humanities. So that is about the person should have a thorough knowledge of archaeological method, its theory and history of ancient civilization. Now students, knowledge of regional sources of material like stones, minerals, metals and clay are used in the production of artifacts and their chemical properties. Yes, something that is very much regional sources. Regional sources, I hope you understand. Yes, that this stones, a type of stone or a type of mineral available in that particular region in abundance. So naturally their usage will be more for making of those artifacts. Moreover students, they do also have some chemical properties along with it. Now number 3 is knowledge of equipment and chemical necessary for cleaning the artifacts and other chemical processes. So students, as we are discussing cleaning of archaeological material, yes, objects of similar material are washed under a gentle flow of water to remove surface dirt. Sometimes stencil brushes are used. Artifacts are then identified. Sorry, they are catalogued and conserved. During the mechanical cleaning, students, I repeat, just excuse me, I'll have a sip of water. Students, during the mechanical cleaning stage, only loose dust, only loose dirt adhering to the object surface is removed. Please take note. This is must, because something that is very much in that particular artifact should not be wiped out in the cleaning process. The cleaning has to be done so much systematic that only the loose dirt adhering to the object's surface is removed. Now, what are the equipments used for cleaning archaeological artifacts? Yes, equipments like small hand shovels, spades, buckets and wheelbarrows are used to clear away the loose dirt known as spoil and take it to the spoil heap. Archaeologists also use mattock, which are large hand tools used to break up hard ground. Okay, students, and now we move on to number 4, that is knowledge of various schools and style of arts and their development. Now student, yes, please pay attention to the word styles of arts, and there are more overall 29 forms of styles of art. Don't worry, I have made a beautiful PDF of these styles of art at national level and international level. So everything will be forwarded to you through PDFs. Okay, I will not speak much about it now because much more knowledge is given, much more collective information is given about the styles of art and their development. Okay, so just like styles of art at international level, some examples, not all, I will not read all 29 because the PDF of those 29 styles of art will be on your screen. You will get it along with the pictures and along with the collective information. So just some examples I would read at international level, that is Renaissance art, Romanticism, Neoclassicism, academic art, ancient art, realism, hyperrealism, pop art, and symbolism, surrealism, and so on. So in all there are 29 styles of arts, and you will be very much happy to see those pictures in the PDFs. Okay. And then what about the Indian styles of art? Yes, Indian styles of art, they are also the material sources. So in all we have 7 Indian styles of art. Again you will get the PDF of the same Indian styles of art. I will upload it during your class session. So number 1 is folk and tribal art. Number 2, Tanjore art. Number 3, Madhubani painting. Number 4, Warli folk painting. Number 5, Pattachitra painting. Number 6, Rajasthani miniatures painting. And number 7, Kala mein Zutu. So this is Kala mein Zutu is a form of style. It's a form of style of art which you will see in the pictures. And now we move ahead. Number 5. Knowledge and skills of making replicas. Replicas, as we have discussed that yes, replicas are the models. The definitions of replica is copy of something or a duplicate of something. Students, sometimes done on a small scale than the original. A small scale model of Titanic is an example of a replica. Students, replica also means as exact reproduction. Okay. So knowledge. So the person who is getting involved with this type of job, which is very much connected to the material sources, he should have thorough knowledge about making replicas, models of artifacts and fossils. Number 6, knowledge of various approaches of managing exhibition in museum, galleries and information technology. So students, in the earlier topic we have discussed about managing exhibition in museums and how information technology would be helpful. And again, the 7th point is writing research reports and articles. This also 14 points by Richard Marius we have discussed. So students, here I complete with 9.2. Yes, and that's for today's session. Next class of history will continue with some famous museums. Okay, till then students, have a great time. Something that we have discussed in today's session, that is chapter 8 Heritage Management 9.1. I want you to read the content along with this commentary, because very less information is given in your text and much more information you will find in this teaching video. So please, as you read the text, please take note of the commentary or the teaching video as well. Okay, so have a nice day, take care of yourself and bye.